The girl thought to herself that she would definitely confess to Kuta that day. At least he clearly heard her words. Words from her childhood friend who usually treated her with indifference whenever they met. She walked past Kuta, saying he was in her way. Inside, Ayano Migasaki was very nervous because she was going to meet Kuta that morning. A few days earlier, Kuta was on the subway, struggling with sleepiness. That night, he could barely sleep for more than a few minutes. Kuta frowned when someone wished him good morning. A little boy said he apparently slept well. His face was pale as always. That was Mizuki Shioji, one of Kuta's few friends. Mizuki had an androgynous appearance, making it hard to tell if he was a boy or a girl, but he was a genuine boy. Even so, some of his qualities were unusual for a male. Mizuki said he was happy to be in the same class as Kuta, even in their second year. Kuta thought his friend was very cute. Then he pushed Mizuki away because he was standing too close. In the process, Kuta dropped his bag. Mizuki bent down in an awkward way to pick it up and apologized for the embarrassing situation. Kuta just stayed silent. When they arrived at school, they greeted their classmates. Kuta sat in the back row near the window, and Mizuki sat right in front of him. Looking to the side, Kuta noticed an empty desk and wondered if it should really be empty. Mizuki didn't know the answer. A transfer student was supposed to sit there. She was delayed because of family issues. Mizuki mentioned that their teacher had talked about it, but Kuta didn't remember. The teacher entered the classroom. She was happy that Kuta was doing well, though he looked bitter in his seat. She scolded the class about losing things, but then called the new student in. The class was impressed by her beauty and long hair. Kuta was shocked when he saw her. She wrote her name on the board, reminding him of the time he had spoken to a little girl who had been crying. She introduced herself seriously as Ayano Migasaki and asked the class to treat her well. The teacher told her to sit at the back near the window. Mizuki asked if Kuta was okay. Kuta stood and faced Ayano, trying to talk to her, but she told him to get out of her way. Confused, Kuta apologized without understanding what had happened. The class was entertained because Kuta's bitter reactions were funny. Meanwhile, he just wanted to disappear. After class, Mizuki asked what had happened earlier. Kuta explained that Ayano had been angry with him for something he said at supplementary school, which had led to her transferring. He regretted never apologizing. Mizuki said the girl looked furious, and Kuta got nervous. Ayano approached him closely, staring at him, but got distracted and tripped. Kuta grabbed her wrist to prevent her from falling. "That was close. Are you okay?" he asked. Angrily, Ayano pulled her arm away and glared at him. Kuta thought that might be the end for him. She then ran away, breathless, holding her notebook close to her chest. Mizuki asked if Kuta was laughing. He said he was smiling for no reason, remembering Ayano telling him to get out of her way. Class ended before he could have a proper conversation with her. It was raining, and a cat rubbed against Kuta's leg. The small creature was cute, and he didn't know if it had an owner. When the cat crossed the street, a truck came speeding toward it. Desperate, Kuta threw his bag aside and leapt to save it. The cat tugged at his sleeve, and Kuta wondered if it was saying thank you. He followed the cat through alleys and stairs, eventually arriving at a huge staircase with a sign, Kagura Cat Sanctuary. Curious, Kuta climbed the stairs. At the top, he saw a girl holding a cat. She asked if he was the boy who saved it. The girl with cat ears thanked him and stopped the rain with a snap of her fingers. She introduced herself as Amatsu Nekohimenu, the owner of the sanctuary. She offered Kuta a reward for saving Byakuya, the cat, but he said he didn't need anything. Then she asked if he wanted to make peace with Ayano. She explained she was a goddess who could grant his wishes without words. Approaching Kuta, Ayano asked if he didn't think it was amazing. Nervously, he agreed, saying she was wonderful. Then Amatsu Nekohimenu began looking for something. She picked up a small ball and told Kuta to eat it. Confused, he asked what it was. The cat girl explained it was a special candy that would allow him to hear the thoughts of the opposite sex for one day. Since he didn't know how to apologize to Ayano, this candy would let him understand her feelings and find the right way to do it. She asked if he doubted her, and explained that her wonderful items came from reliable sources. She handed him a manual so he wouldn't have to worry. The doorbell rang, and she went to fetch a package that had arrived. Kuta thought that if this really helped him know Ayano's feelings, it would make resolving their situation much easier. Even so, hearing someone's heart felt intrusive. But after risking his life to save a cat, he felt he deserved a reward like this. Amatsu returned, worried, shouting for Kuta not to eat the candy, but he had already eaten it, sitting with the cat on his lap. When he asked what was wrong, she laughed nervously and said not to worry. She brought the real manual, a gigantic book containing important details. Anyone who ate the candy could read the thoughts of the opposite sex, but there were strict rules. 1. If he received a love confession, he would die. 2. The ability wouldn't disappear until graduation, and dropping out or transferring could be fatal. 3. If someone not involved discovered the ability, he would die. She explained that the candy was created by the god of envy. The market was full of fake candies and manuals, meant to ruin love stories. The real manual had just arrived. Kuta was nervous, afraid that hearing a love confession from Ayano could kill him. The cat girl laughed and said it didn't matter. She didn't think anyone would confess to him anyway. Despite himself, Kuta realized she was right. Suddenly, pain struck his head. His voice echoed inside it, and it felt like his head would split. But this was just the candy's effect. Moments later, he woke up at home with his sister on top of him. He didn't know how he got there. She found him unconscious in front of the house, surrounded by cats, with a red face. Even though he wasn't feeling well, Kuta decided to go to school. Passing through the gates, he felt pain in his head again. A voice told him today's lesson would be boring. He realized he could hear the thoughts of the girls around him. Then he heard one involving his name, Ayano Yumemigasaki. She complained that he was in the way, but her thoughts revealed that today she would confess to him. Kuta was shocked. He couldn't believe she liked him. The words of Princess Nico, the cat goddess, entered his head. He panicked, knowing that if he received a love confession, he could die. When Kuta was in elementary school, Ayano had always been admired by her classmates for her talent. Meanwhile, Kuta was busy studying. Suddenly, Ayano approached him. He asked if she hadn't gone home with her friends. She said it was fine and wanted to know if he had finished reading. He took a notebook from his backpack. Ayano asked his opinion. He said it was the same as what the other girls thought. Holding his hand, Ayano asked him to be honest. He said he didn't find it interesting, but he didn't want her to misunderstand. A tear fell on the notebook. Ayano was crying. She said it was as she thought. Only Kuta understood. Then she apologized and left, still crying. Later, she changed schools. Kuta had always thought she hated him, but now she wanted to confess. He couldn't understand what had changed. Remembering Princess Nico's warning that he would die if he received a confession, Kuta panicked. He realized he needed to find the cat goddess for help. When he arrived, everything seemed destroyed. The huge staircase was gone, and the place looked abandoned. A cat meowed, and he asked if it was Byakuya. Desperate, he begged the cat to lead him to the sanctuary from the previous day. The kitten meowed, but then someone appeared. The cat goddess scolded him for being noisy. She wanted to sleep. Kuta cried emotionally. Confused, she asked why he was so eager to see her. He called her Lord God, but she told him he could call her Princess Nico. Kuta asked why the temple had changed so drastically. She explained that it was the temple of real life, and the previous day she had made everything look more interesting. Worried, Kuta said that Ayano would confess soon. The cat goddess laughed, finding his confidence amusing. He explained that he saw it in her heart, and Princess Nico asked if that was true. He confirmed it. Desperate, Kuta Nitaki bowed and begged Princess Nico to somehow take away the power from him. The cat girl reminded him that, as she said before, the power wouldn't disappear until he finished high school, and there was nothing she could do about it. Kuta argued that she had given him the candy and recommended he eat it, so she was responsible and needed to help him. Princess Nico was indignant. It was Kuta who had eaten the candy without permission. She really couldn't do anything, but he kept insisting because she was a goddess. Furious, Princess Nico shouted that she couldn't help, and she didn't like this situation or plan any of it. She said he was blaming her unfairly. Kuta said he understood, but just wanted to check one last thing. If he received a love confession, would he really die? The cat girl explained that death and life were just concepts. Even if the body were destroyed, the spirit continued, but he would die. For now, he couldn't be near Ayano Yumemigasaki. When he got home, he heard laughter. He wondered if his sister's friends were over. Yuna, his sister, was gossiping about him. Kuta could hear everything. He entered the house and was surprised to find Ayano cooking there. He asked his sister why she was there, and Yuna said she had invited Ayano to talk for a long time, and because she loved the food Ayano cooked. Kuta tried to retreat to his room, but Yuna held his arm. She asked if he was nervous. Kuta couldn't admit he was, because if Ayano confessed to him, he might die. Then he started hearing Ayano's thoughts. She wondered if he was surprised she appeared suddenly. She thought Kota had matured and considered him amazing. Kuta wanted to thank her, but Ayano said his face looked as boring as always. Then she wondered why she said that, because Kota was the most handsome boy in the world. She thought he was so beautiful it affected her just by looking. Yuna urged Kuta to try the food. He did, and it was delicious. Ayano was thinking, this is really nice. He could see her smile growing as she struggled to contain it. When he called her, she turned serious. Kuta didn't understand why she liked him so much. He thought she hated him. Maybe Ayano had forgotten that day. During the meal, Yuna asked if Ayano had been writing romances before. Kota remembered. He was annoyed his sister brought it up, but Ayano said she still wrote and handed over a book. Yuna was impressed. It was a very popular romance novel. Ayano explained She had several copies at home. Yuna was thrilled and asked if Ayano had become a professional writer. She said it was just her first work and didn't know what would happen next. Kuta realized her pseudonym was Tani Tiko. He knew she had been writing for a long time, so having her romance in a bookstore was impressive. He told her she was amazing. Then he remembered that she had once said her story wasn't interesting. Kuta wondered what he had been doing back then. Ayano explained she was invited to a chat and signing session for writers, a way for new and established authors to interact. 2 newcomers and 2 famous writers were invited, and she was one of the newcomers. Ichika Kaido, a very famous writer whose books sold worldwide, would also be there. She was even Ayano's mother, who had abandoned her. Kuta asked if Ichika Kaido had contacted her, and Ayano said not once, only a single call and email since leaving home. Yuna remembered and asked if their father would come home that day. Since he wouldn't, she invited Ayano to sleep over. Being the weekend, it was fine. Kuta thought Ayano should refuse the invitation and decided to help her. He told Yuna not to put her in trouble, but Yuna told him to shut up. Ayano started to speak, but Yuna held her hand, and Ayano agreed. Kuta wondered when his dignity as a brother had stopped working. Yuna was excited to have a friend sleep over, and Kuta couldn't forget that he would die if someone confessed to him. That night, Kuta lay in bed, worried because Ayano was in the next room. She had gone to shower earlier, and he wondered about her clothes. Yuna's pajamas would be too small for her. He turned off the light at 11 p.m. Suddenly, he heard a noise. Kuta woke up startled. He thought he heard girls' voices, but maybe it was just his imagination. Someone turned the doorknob, and his body went cold. At 4 a.m., he heard Ayano's thoughts about him sleeping deeply. He pretended to be asleep, wondering what she was doing there. Ayano noticed Kuta slept with a cute face, unaware she was watching. She had to return to her room without Yuna noticing. Curious, Kuta peeked and saw her in casual pajamas. Not the flirty outfit he imagined. Ayano sat on the bed and wondered how he would react if she kissed him. Kuta panicked. This would be his first kiss. He remembered that Ayano had recently learned her mother was leaving suddenly. She tried to speak to her, but her mother ignored her. Ayano asked why she was leaving, and her mother said it was because she was a writer. She asked if being a playwright was something she couldn't give up. Kuta told Ayano he would always support her writing because he loved her novels. She promised she would finish her story soon so he could read it. Thinking about it, Kuta Nitaki noticed that Ayano Yumemigasaki seemed worried, as if she feared others' opinions. He had a nostalgic dream and opened his eyes. Ayano was there, wondering if he would notice if she kissed him. A ridiculous situation. Suddenly, Yuna called for Ayano. The girl panicked, worried about being caught in Kuta's room. She feared Yuna would think she was a pervert. Kuta worried too. If his sister found her there, he might be blamed. When Yuna entered, she only saw a blanket on the bed. She closed the door, amused by the idea of Ayano being in her brother's room. Kuta had hidden her under the blanket, and Ayano was terrified. She wondered if he had been awake the whole time. Kuta whispered for her to be quiet and explained that she must have sleepwalked into his room by mistake. Ayano went along with the lie, pretending she thought it was Yuna's room. With Yuna on the first floor, it was the perfect time for Ayano to leave. She began talking to Kuta, saying she had something to tell him. Kuta panicked, remembering that he could die if someone confessed to him. He didn't know whether to cover his ears or silence her. Ayano apologized for leaving without saying anything. Back then, she had suddenly transferred schools because of her father's job. Even though she could have contacted him, she hadn't, and now she wanted to apologize. Kuta didn't know what to say. Suddenly, his head hurt, the same intense pain he had felt when he fainted at the cat temple. Yuna touched his face, asking what happened. The pain passed and she pulled up the blanket. Seeing 2 people in the bed, Yuna was perplexed, but realized that Ayano must have sleepwalked. She was secretly happy, grabbed Ayano and dragged her out of the room. Before leaving, Yuna scolded Kuta, calling him the worst. Ayano put on her shoes and apologized for leaving before breakfast. Yuna said it was fine and that she could come back any time. Kuta thought about meeting Ayano every night. He offered to walk her home, and Yuna told him not to get lost. Kuta asked if her house was far. Ayano said it was right there, pointing to a neighboring house. Kuta was confused. It looked empty. She explained that she had moved into that empty house. The night before, she had gone there to get pajamas. She smiled at him and told him to take care of her from now on. Now his childhood friend had become his neighbor. Kuta didn't know what to do, fearing death by fate. For now, he wanted to visit the cat temple to learn something. Princess Nico was sleeping when he called for her. He asked about the manual. She complained that he never gave her anything and always asked for favors, which is why she hated humans. Kuta promised to bring cat food next time. She requested churu. The manual had new points. Some parts were unreadable. Precaution 4 warned about exaggerated emotions and a taste for the opposite sex causing terrible migraines. If things got worse, or if Ayano hated him, he could die. Princess Nico reminded him that Ayano moved to live peacefully. Using her crystal ball, she could see Koda's actions and hear his voice, meaning he could never do anything suspicious without being caught. He only needed to be careful around Ayano, which was manageable since he had only one friend nearby. Somehow, Koda found motivation again. The next morning, he opened the door to see if Ayano had gone to school. If he left a bit later, he could avoid her for the rest of high school. At the same time, the neighboring door opened, and Ayano ran out. She tripped but stayed on her feet, fixed her hair, and greeted him. "Good morning." She claimed she hadn't known he was there, though it was a lie. She thought going to school with him was nostalgic. When he looked at her, she turned away, nervous that he was staring. Mizuki Shioji approached, asking why Kuda was taking the train so early. Kuda tried to justify himself, but Mizuki warned it shouldn't happen more than 3 days. Then Mizuki teased about Kuta being involved with Ayano again. Kuda stepped back, denying it, remembering he had told Mizuki that Ayano was his childhood friend who hated him. After all, she didn't really hate him. Kuda didn't understand why he was nervous since Mizuki was a boy. Suddenly, someone bumped into them. Mizuki complained about how crowded the train was, and Kuda was uncomfortable with how close his friend's hand was. Both became nervous and stepped back, worried. Kuda told Mizuki not to make any teasing jokes. He reflected internally that touching an important part of Koda's body was surprising. Then he realized that Mizuki's mouth wasn't moving, which meant Mizuki was hearing his thoughts. Princess Nico had said the little ball would let Kota Nitake hear the thoughts of the opposite sex. Kota worried because Mizuki Shioji looked like a girl, but he knew Mizuki was actually a boy, or so he thought. Mizuki, meanwhile, was careful not to reveal her true identity. On the crowded train, they ended up very close. Kuda wondered if Nico would protect him. Now he had to deal with 2 friends to survive. Meanwhile, the cat princess slept happily. The next day at school, Mizuki helped Koda stretch. Neko had warned him to avoid Ayano Yume Migasaki, but Koda had only one friend, and he soon discovered that Mizuki was actually a girl. Mizuki reflected that, by now, Koda still didn't know her secret. Koda didn't care about that. He wanted to know if Mizuki liked him. Mizuki switched places with him, asking for help stretching. At least he knew she wouldn't confess. Still, she was a girl, and feelings could grow, so Koda had to be careful. Mizuki complained he was hurting her back. When she looked at him, Koda felt as if he had been hit by a love arrow. She asked what was happening. He said nothing. He didn't know what to do. Mizuki was so different, yet he had to pretend he knew nothing as long as she hid her gender. During ball practice, Mizuki got hurt. Koda ran to the middle of the court and asked if she was okay. She said it was nothing serious, but when she tried to move her leg, she felt pain. The teacher said she had twisted her ankle and asked Koda to take her to the nurse's office. He told Mizuki to get on his back. She worried that he might notice she was a girl. Koda carried her carefully to the nurse's office. He returned later with her uniform and asked if her foot felt better. Mizuki said she was a little better and was relieved Koda still hadn't realized she was a girl. Even carrying her, Koda noticed nothing unusual. Mizuki thanked him, and he left the nurse's office. She needed to change clothes quickly and hoped someone could help, but Koda only found her tie in the hallway. He guessed she would close the curtain to change. He opened the nurse's office door to return the tie and froze. Mizuki was without a shirt. She quickly pulled a blanket over herself, sweating nervously. She realized Koda had discovered she was a girl. Koda reflected that her chest was small but real. He didn't know whether to treat her normally or pretend not to notice. Mizuki worried about being suspended, especially since she had just made a friend. During class, she greeted him as usual, and they walked together. Koda remembered what he saw earlier, but knew it wasn't too late. He jokingly shouted about her chest muscles. Mizuki asked if he really thought it was just muscle. To maintain her disguise, she explained she had been training and was happy to see results. She offered for him to check her muscles, saying they could touch each other because they were boys. She pulled the blanket back. Koda ran away, saying he had to get back to class and would see her later, closing the infirmary door. Mizuki worried she had lost something important as a girl. Then she told him to touch her muscles and guided his hand to her chest. She noticed his hand was big and admitted she could no longer hide her feelings. She had liked him from the start. Koda woke from a nightmare, screaming. His sister Yuna entered with a baseball bat, asking what happened. He explained it was just a dream. She teased him, saying he didn't need to be scared, and reflected that being kind to him would make it easier to ask him for things later. While washing dishes, Kuda thought about staying home to relax that weekend. Suddenly, Mizuki called him. He answered, and she casually invited him to go out for burgers. Nervous, he agreed, though he still remembered his nightmare and hoped it wouldn't come true. Later, Kauda waited in front of the burger shop. He heard the thoughts of girls passing by. At first, he felt guilty, but now he found it entertaining. Until Mizuki arrived, he could have a little fun. He had learned some rules about the ability. Range depends on distance, obstacles affect hearing, and volume reflects the person's emotion. Mizuki arrived and called him. Kota noticed how cute she was. She still pretended to be a boy, but was clearly a girl. They bought burgers and left. Despite knowing the truth, Mizuki remained the same. She asked where they should sit, and Kuta felt relieved. Thanks to Mizuki's dignity, he could just maintain contact as a friend. They sat down to eat together. Mizuki points to someone and says, "That girl is Kota Nitake's type. She's wearing tights," and Kota had already said he liked that. Mizuki wonders if it's even allowed to wear tights with shorts. Meanwhile, Kota thinks that he always assumed Mizuki was a boy, so he said things he normally wouldn't say to a girl. Suddenly, he hears someone thinking about removing something. When he looks, it's an employee shooing away a fly. The fly flies toward Mizuki, scaring her, and she falls backward. Kota grabs her just in time. He's glad she didn't hit the floor, though he realizes he's accidentally squeezing her chest. Mizuki reflects that she invited him out like before, but if he keeps acting that way, she won't handle it well. Kota notices it was an accident and lets her go. Mizuki sees his strange reaction and wonders if he discovered her true gender. Kota decides to act naturally until Mizuki regains her composure. Kawata tells them to eat their hamburgers. Mizuki turns red and feels embarrassed, unable to look at him. Kota tries to change the subject, saying hamburgers are good, but Mizuki doesn't respond. She's too embarrassed. Then teacher Amaya appears, saying she saw them through the window. She looks at Mizuki and realizes she's getting along well with Kota. Kota notices that she knows Mizuki is actually a girl. If revealed, Mizuki could be expelled from school. Mizuki wonders why the teacher is here. Shouldn't she be resting? Kota realizes that this teacher is actually a maid. The maid always seems dazed in class, but Kota is the only one irritated by it. Seeing that the maid is strict with Mizuki is strange. Kota notices his headache worsening. Amamiya, the maid, whispers to Mizuki that Kuta already knows her secret. Mizuki is shocked. She's been hiding her gender to follow her family tradition and study at a traditional school. If exposed, she'd have to transfer to a girls' school where a maid must accompany her at all times. Kota is shocked by the consequences and the family tradition. Amamiya observes Mizuki, noting she looks very pretty. She also seems interested in the shampoo Mizuki uses. Mizuki is startled, thinking the maid might have sniffed her. Kota notices the woman seems dangerous. The maid grabs Mizuki's arm, insisting they go to the transfer office. Kota questions where they are going, but the woman says it's none of his business. Mizuki feels dazed. She worries that if she leaves, she'll never see Kota again. If she can convince the maid that Kota doesn't know her secret, she might have a chance. Kota realizes he needs to act in a way that shows he doesn't know, but he doesn't know how. Amamiya insists they leave, and Mizuki apologizes for inviting him out. She says goodbye, knowing it might be the last time they meet. Kota calls Mizuki to the bathroom before leaving. He feels full from drinking soda. The maid notices and assumes Mizuki is a boy. The excuse for transferring her disappears. Mizuki tells the maid she's going to the bathroom with Kota. Kota hasn't thought of a plan yet. They go to the urinal, pretending to pee. Kota says that if Mizuki leaves, he'll leave too. Mizuki apologizes for inviting him. When they exit, they look for Amamiya. Mizuki notices her hamburger is gone. Apparently, Amamiya took half. Kota concludes the maid is dangerous. On the way back, Mizuki reflects that thanks to Kota, she avoided being transferred. She's surprised he called her to the bathroom so suddenly, but it resolved the misunderstanding. He still thinks she's a boy. Mizuki thanks him for saving her when she almost fell. Kota says she's lucky. She holds his hand and promises to support him if something happens next time. They say goodbye. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps more than you think. And if you'd like to support me further, consider joining my Patreon. I'm not making much from the channel at the moment, so every bit of support truly means a lot. You'll get ad-free videos and shoutouts as a thank you for helping me keep this going. Now, back to the video. Suddenly, a cat appears. Kota greets Byakuya. He asks if the kitten came because he was worried. The cat looks downcast. Kota asks why it's sad. Apparently, it hasn't had time to rest because turbulence is approaching. Earlier, Byakuya checked on it, but it still seemed unwell. Kota has a bad feeling and knows he must be careful until he gets home. A black car is parked in front of Ayano Migasaki's house. A staff member asks if the woman really wants to give up. She replies scared, placing her hand on the car. Kota notices it's Hanai, Ayano's mother. Her maid notices him and asks who he is. Kota introduces himself as the neighbor. He asks if the woman is really Hanai. She remembers Kota and comments he's grown and handsome, places her hand on his face, then steps back, apologizing that he's still a child. Kota asks if Hanai came to see Ayano. She says she was just passing by but is now leaving. Since leaving home, she hasn't contacted her daughter. Ayano must feel completely alone. Koda asks Hanai to wait, hoping she can see Ayano even for a moment. She shakes her head. The woman believes she doesn't have the right to stop it, and the car drives away. Kuda asks Byakuya if he's worried about Hanai, reassuring the cat that she won't capture him or do anything like that. Even so, the cat remains sad. Kuda thinks maybe it's something else. Deciding not to go home, he heads to the cat temple instead. At the cat palace, Princess Nico is instructing the kittens to steal from vending machines and bring the money to her. Kuda asks what she's doing. She explains that even making a proper donation box only gets her 1 or 2 yen a week. Kuda opens his wallet and hands her 50 yen. Princess Nico reminds him that the manual has been updated with new precautions. She reads the main ones aloud. Precaution 5. A 10-second countdown appears before an imminent declaration. She doesn't know whether the numbers will appear in front of him, but when he notices the countdown, he can try to prevent his imminent death, essentially a chance to avoid a confession. The countdown might be proof that the god of envy is merciful. The cat girl adds that this precaution is a bit concerning. Koda asks why, and Princess Nico explains, imagine being attacked from behind with an axe versus from the front. Which is scarier? Koda replies that fear comes from a frontal attack. That's why the god of envy included the countdown. It gives users a taste of the fear of death. Kuda pets Byakuya, telling the downcast kitten not to worry. No matter how dangerous it gets, as long as he avoids declarations, he'll be fine. He thanks Princess Nico and heads home. Before leaving, she warns him to stay alert, sensing a bad feeling. When Koda arrives, he apologizes to Yuna Nitake for being late. He hears a familiar voice and sees Ayano Yumemigasaki at the top of the stairs holding tickets for an autograph session. She wants Koda to have them first. Koda realizes this must have been Princess Nico's premonition. Koda notices it's the first time seeing Ayano in normal clothes since school started. She wears a beautiful outfit with tights, something he loves. The bad feeling wasn't about the autograph session, but the tights. Looking through her crystal ball, Nico is indignant at Koda for being so silly. Reflecting on the past, when Koda and Yuna were in elementary school, their father had an accident and never returned. They didn't know about their mother's job, though they heard she saved many lives. After their father's death, their mother spent less time at home, leaving Koda in charge of Yuna. He tried to be a role model for his sister. A maid their mother hired would often come to care for them, but Yuna would cry, feeling her mother was being replaced. Koda asked their mother to stop sending babysitters. From then on, only delivery food arrived. He tried to cheer up his sister, but even stories from school or anime trends didn't make her smile. One day, their mother gave them necklaces. Yuna was overjoyed, and her mood improved greatly. When Koda arrived home this day, Ayano was apologizing for the intrusion. Yuna welcomed her, noting that her brother had come home late. Dinner was already prepared, though it was Koda's responsibility. Smiling, Yuna said he could help finish. Ayano felt guilty for eating their food, but Yuna reassured her. Koda notices Ayano mentioned a signing session, likely the same day as the chat. She had come to invite him, but was too nervous. Koda reflects that it's better if he doesn't attend. While washing dishes, Ayano approaches to help, but he tells her to watch TV with Yuna. She asks if he didn't sign his name in a fancy way in elementary school and hints at the word autograph. Before they could continue, Yuna announces an emergency. There are no snacks left. She orders them to go buy some immediately, pushing Ayano to accompany Koda. Ayano is excited to keep the pair together, while Koda complains about the cold. They head to the market, and Ayano reflects that this was the perfect moment to invite him out. After crossing the street, Koda Nitake looked at the scenery, no longer expecting Ayano Yumemigasaki to invite him. Ayano asked why he had stopped. The girl paused, remembering something. It was there that he had lost his necklace. Actually, it was Yuna Nitake's necklace. Koda explained that he had dropped it while they were playing. Now Ayano wanted to know what happened next, if Yuna had been crying or smiling, but Koda couldn't recall. Eventually, he had told Ayano what happened. Apparently, they had done this because Yuna was very strange and rarely smiled, looking almost like a doll. Her necklace had fallen into the water, while Yuna watched from the ledge. When she got home, she had cried a lot. Koda immediately went to the lake, wading into the water to search for the necklace. Beneath his feet were only mud and stones, and most of the time he struggled to stay upright. If only his own necklace had been like hers, he could have given it to his sister. Koda continued searching, ending up with badly hurt hands. Then someone asked what he was looking for. Ayano was standing behind him. She commented that it had been a while since they last saw each other. They used to play together, but had stopped after Kuda's father passed away. The girl entered the lake, asking if he was looking for treasures. Kuda explained he wasn't playing. His sister had lost her necklace, and he couldn't find it. He eventually gave up and stepped out of the water, but Ayano insisted on helping a little longer. A storm was forecasted for the next day, and if they didn't find the necklace now, it would be lost forever. Ayano tried to call Kota, but he was crying and wanted to be alone. He was embarrassed that she had seen him like that, so he ran home by himself, pouring all his feelings into searching for Yuna's necklace. When he got home, Yuna was sitting on the floor crying. She asked if he had found her necklace. Kota apologized, saying he hadn't. Yuna started to cry harder. He offered his own necklace, but she refused. She wanted hers back. Watching Yuna cry so intensely, Kota's eyes began to close on their own. He wanted to appear strong for his sister, but it was harder than he expected. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Kota wondered who it could be at this hour, since their mother had said she wouldn't be home this month. The doorbell kept ringing, and he hoped the visitor would leave, but they knocked again. Kota woke his sister and told her someone was at the door. It was Ayano holding Yuna's necklace. She asked if that was indeed Yuna's. The child grew agitated and ecstatic. Ayano felt relieved to have found the correct necklace. Yuna started crying again, thanking her profusely. Kota asked if Ayano had been searching for it all this time. She replied that she had, knowing the storm would come the next day. Still, Kota wanted to know why she had taken such a risk. Ayano explained that seeing him in trouble made her want to help. Even though she wasn't sure which necklace belonged to Yuna, she had taken several items that could have been it. She asked if the little girl wanted any of them, but Yuna declined. Ayano had brightened their day, preventing it from being consumed by sadness. Kota approached her. Despite Princess Nico's warning of a bad feeling, he couldn't ignore the moment. He brought up the autograph session she had mentioned earlier and expressed that he wanted to be present in her life. He told her he would like to attend the session. The day that should have ended in sadness was instead filled with Ayano Yumemigasaki's smile. Kota Nitake didn't want to make her sad or ignore his own feelings. He wanted to share in the joy of the moment. Princess Nico remarked that Kota valued the feelings of others above his own life. Kota apologized for making her take care of him, but before he could leave, the cat girl touched his face and blessed him. Now he would have a little luck on his side. He asked if she really had that kind of power, and Nico laughed, asking who he thought she was. The princess added that petting a cat could also help to purify the spirit. Byakuya lay on the floor with her belly up. Kota thought it was very cute. Nico suggested he pet Byakuya since her fur was the softest in town, but Kota refused and petted the cat gently instead. The next day, Kota reflected that Ayano hadn't even managed to formally invite him to the autograph session, so he didn't think she would reach the love confession wall. Since problems would only arise if she confessed before he graduated high school, he felt relatively safe. Ayano called for Kota and asked if he had a moment. She wanted to talk about the location of the autograph session, which would take place in a building with a huge bookstore called Matatabi, 4 blocks away. She explained that the session would happen after a talk. The talk would be conducted by 4 people. 2 newcomers and 2 famous writers. Then each newcomer would hold their own autograph session. This meant that the mediator for the event would be Ayano's mother, Ichikaidu. Ayano worried about what her mother thought of her. She feared her mother wouldn't like her, especially since she still didn't understand why her mother had left. Even so, she really wanted to meet her mother, though she didn't know what to say. Kota called Ayano over and pretended to hold a microphone, asking what she thought of her first autograph session. The girl asked what he meant, and he said it was better to practice beforehand, to feel comfortable. Ayano admitted she couldn't know what she would say until she faced the fans. Kota told her that he was a fan of hers. It was hard for him to imagine seeing his idol's face every day. She had dreamed of this moment but had never stopped to think about it. Now he really was going to her autograph session. He added that he admired her a lot. The night before, Kota had invited himself to her autograph session. Apparently they had never reached this point before, and now Ayano was very nervous. But it was fine, since she would never have the courage to confess to him. Suddenly, Ayano hugged Kota. He was shocked by her reaction. The girl melted to the floor, overcome with excitement that Kota was attending her autograph session. Trying to play it cool, she said she had just felt an overwhelming urge to sit down right there. She didn't even care about the interview anymore, and before they knew it, the day had passed in the blink of an eye. After Kota Nitake asked to attend her autograph session, Ayano Yumemigasaki acted as if it was no big deal. She mentioned that her editor had given her some tickets the other day, and one of them was left over. By coincidence, she had it with her and could give it to him. Kota accepted the ticket and promised that he would definitely go to the autograph session. Ayano was overjoyed and could hardly hide her happiness. Trying to disguise it, she said that since he had a ticket, he needed to go. She took the opportunity to suggest exchanging numbers, but tried to hide how much she cared by pretending it wasn't a big deal. In the morning, Kota left home with his sister Yuna Nitake. Ayano was peeking through the door crack and headed toward them. When she saw Yuna with him, she was surprised. She had expected it to be just her and Kuta. She pretended it was a coincidence and said it was unexpected to see the two of them together. Even Yuna noticed that Ayano had been waiting behind the door. Kuta confirmed if that was the day of the autograph session. Yuna said she would have liked to go but had a math club meeting that afternoon, so only her brother could attend. Kuta didn't hear much from Ayano's mind that day, perhaps because she was tense with the upcoming chat. Yuna asked if Ayano had rehearsals, and the girl confirmed that she did. She wondered if she had prepared everything she needed. Then something fell from her bag and Kuta picked it up, realizing it was a small planner. He told Ayano she had dropped it. She quickly grabbed it, making a stern face, and thanked him. Yuna called Ayano's attention, noting that her bag had fallen, and had even set it aside to grab the little notebook. Kuta became curious about it. Ayano said she needed to go to the teacher's lounge to clarify a few things since she was leaving early. When Kuta opened his locker, something fell to the floor, a photo of Mizuki. He wondered why it was there. Suddenly, Mizuki appeared behind him. She explained that, from now on, she needed to handle broadcasting lost items after school, and this photo had been found. Kuta handed the photo back to her. Mizuki remarked that the photo seemed to have been taken secretly. Kuta asked if she knew who might have taken it. He suspected their teacher, but decided it was better not to tell her. Mizuki, annoyed that someone had photographed her without consent, handed the photo to Kuta to keep. He screamed in frustration, but ultimately accepted it. He reflected that Mizuki had no fear of interacting with boys her age. His curiosity about Ayano's diary faded. Later in class, Mizuki left. During the chat time, Kuta felt huge anxiety. He looked at the time and noted that there was still plenty of time until the autograph session, but it was good to arrive early. He said goodbye to Mizuki, who reciprocated. Kuta noticed that the book in her hand was the romance Ayano Yume Migasaki had written. Mizuki asked if he knew which book it was, and he said he had read it recently. She was surprised, commenting that she hadn't expected him to read that kind of book. She found it interesting, noting that Ayano's writing style was very similar to Ichikaido's. Mizuki noticed something remarkable and asked Kuta to observe Ayano's pseudonym. If you rearrange the letters, it formed Nitaki Kuta. Kuta wondered what Ayano was thinking, and Mizuki said the coincidence was funny. They said goodbye, and Kuta questioned why Ayano used his name that way. His anxiety eased, and he felt lighter. He recalled that Ayano had reflected that if he went to the autograph session, she wouldn't care about the chat anymore. This made him feel more comfortable. Suddenly, he received a call from Ayano. It was the first time she had called him, and he was nervous, unsure what she wanted. A voice introduced herself as Kirigiri Seiko from the editorial department. Kuta remembered her as the woman who had been with Hanai the other day. Thinking it was Ayano calling, he wondered what she wanted. Kirigiri asked if he knew Ayano would be attending the chat that day. Kuta confirmed, and she got straight to the point. If this continued, Ayano wouldn't be able to make it to the chat.
Please!
Subscribe.
I need this! My mom is kind of homeless.